that true justice is never convenient. I want to acknowledge some of our partners in good trouble in this fight. Senator Cory Booker, our co-lead in the Senate, Chairwoman Yvette Clarke of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman, Congresswoman Latifah Simon, Congresswoman Summer Lee, and the more than 70 members of Congress who have signed on to co-sponsor the legislation that was first introduced. And I want to make this point because it is Black History Month. And while there are those that are working actively, either to erase our history or to whitewash it, that I'm here in this moment to pick up the mantle of this historic legislation that has been championed by John Conyers, Congressman John Conyers, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. That was introduced more than 30 years ago when Congressman John Conyers was a co-founder of the Congressional Black Caucus. We're at a critical inflection point in America, and the moment cannot be more urgent. With Black history under attack and white supremacy emboldened, there is no better time to introduce this bill than during Black History Month, a time when we reflect on our history, our struggle, and our collective power. And I'll say, it is also not only about Black history, but it is about Black futures. More than 4 centuries ago, Africans were kidnapped, trafficked, and enslaved, forced to build this country under horrific brutality, an economy which we still benefit from today. Rice, sugar, tobacco, cotton. And even after the Civil War, emancipation, and the 13th Amendment, the legacy of slavery endured in other forms, codified in law to deny Black Americans freedom, opportunity, and dignity. And that's what brings us here today. This brutality, these injustices, these horrors were not things just happened within the culture by osmosis. They were legislated. Today, with Donald Trump and Republicans waging their coordinated and at times unlawful assault on Black folks and Black history, we will not allow that history to be erased. We will not allow it to be whitewashed. H.R. 40 is a powerful reminder of the work that remains and offers us a pathway toward truth, reconciliation, and accountability. To be clear, this bill is not a symbolic gesture, but rather a meaningful step toward repairing the deep structural injustices that continue to harm Black communities today. The racial wealth gap in America is not an accident. In Boston, my home city, the Federal Reserve counts Black wealth at just $8, compared to the wealth of white households at $247,500. Nationwide, the racial wealth gap is over 10 trillion. That's trillion with a T. This shameful reality is the direct result of generations of precise, intentional policy harm codified into our laws and budgets. And it is specifically the result of slavery and the anti-Black society that followed. From Jim Crow to redlining to mass incarceration, our government, through policies and budgets, has perpetuated and entrenched these harms for generations. The disparities that we see in health outcomes, housing, education, wealth, and more are by design. Today, our government has a moral and legal obligation to right those wrongs, and reparations are a necessary step towards achieving justice. Now, here's what the bill would do. H.R. 40 creates a federal commission, an expert body charged with investigating the enduring impacts of slavery and its aftermath, and developing concrete proposals for reparations. This is a pragmatic policy that is fundamentally about repairing harm and building a more just America. Whether you are in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Trenton, New Jersey, or Mattapan in the Massachusetts 7th Congressional District, this is about ensuring that every person has a fair chance at the American dream. Now, I know some like to think that Rosa sat, Martin marched, and John crossed a bridge, and we were free. But we are still very much in the civil rights movement. Every day, the progress that we have fought for, the gains that have been made, are under assault and being rolled back. Donald Trump and his co-president Elon Musk and their enablers in Congress and the courts are working overtime to strip away our rights, from gutting affirmative action, dismantling voting rights, to attacking diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives that benefit Black folks and everyone who calls this country home. I think it's really important in these times that we call a thing a thing. We're in a moment of anti-blackness on steroids, and we refuse to be silent. We will not back down in our pursuit of racial justice. And while we do the work of resistance and blunting the many harms of this hostile, anti-Black administration, it's imperative that we continue advancing an affirmative agenda for Black America and building momentum toward this critical priority. So today we have a choice. We can continue to uphold an unjust status quo, or we can work actively to disrupt it. We can allow our history to be erased, or we can actively engage in truth-telling. We can and we must confront our past and take meaningful steps to repair the harm that has been done. H.R. 40 is an opportunity to do exactly that. She was the previous House sponsor of H.R. 40 and a true giant in the movement for reparative justice. We are grateful for her leadership. We are grateful for her example and her voice. May she rest in peace and power.